The Baltimore Ravens offensive line is going through a shift in identity and a major shift in players. We talk about what their offensive line could look like next year, the latest Ravens updates with free agency and all the moves, plus so much more coming up next year on this episode of Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of Locked On Ravens. We are your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. As always, I'm your host here, Kevin Ostreicher of Ravens Wire, coming to you from the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Thank you so much for being here and making Locked On Ravens your first listen each and every day. We're free and available on all podcasting platforms. It includes a video form and audio form, so you can subscribe, follow along on YouTube, also in audio form wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, the whole 9 yards there. We bring your Ravens content 5 days per week, plus a bunch of bonus content. We've been grinding that out with how busy the Ravens have been over the first couple of days of free agency. Mostly losses, but some key additions there as well. Today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. We have back with us today Qadry Ismail, former Baltimore Ravens wide receiver, and of course a Super Bowl champion. And the Ravens are trying to build their roster to win another Super Bowl. They came up short last year in the AFC Championship game, and we've seen them lose a lot of players over these first couple of days. They did bring in Derrick Henry, which we'll talk about, but the big news of Wednesday was that Morgan Moses was traded. Ronnie Stanley gets restructured. That offensive line looks like it's going to go through a bit of a changing of the guard here as we get into next season.
Honestly, the moment they said, we're rotating our offensive linemen, we're going to give guys breaks, we're going to switch it up. Joe D, the offensive line coach, I think one thing you see with him is the way in which he has the heartbeat of his team and knowing, hey, what's the best way to keep our guys fresh? I knew right then that's when the priority of the offseason, as much as everybody loves the running backs, we'll get into that. As much as everybody loves what the receivers look like and or looked past tense like, I knew that there was going to be a reckoning because Ronnie Stanley, Morgan Moses and company, my goodness, you got a franchise quarterback. You got to protect him. Look at Aaron Rodgers. Look at, Daniel Jones signing these big contracts. And if you can't protect guys, sorry, you're out of luck. And I think for the Ravens, EDC, he recognizes, look, we came up short. We weren't able to do what we needed to do. And while we played amazing, while we were the number one seed, ultimately the offensive lineman came into his crosshairs as far as changing the offseason, and that's what we're seeing.
Yeah, and I think everybody anticipated definitely a few losses considering how good the Ravens free agent class was. Now, with the offensive line, essentially you're potentially looking at 3 new starters next season. The Ravens did restructure Ronnie Stanley's contract. At the time we're recording this, we don't know the specific terms of that yet, but they were never going to play him at that $26.2 million number. It felt like it was either going to be a restructure or just an outright release. Maybe you do a post-June 1 save the $15 million. I'd assume maybe it's in the $5 to $10 million range, but again, we don't know the specifics of that. But the Morgan Moses trade is the one that has a lot of people, I guess I'll use the word fascinated, because there was a conversation about, are they going to get rid of both tackles, get rid of one guy? Or are they going to just keep both? Moses was a really solid player for them last season, rated in the top 10 in terms of run blocking, and he's been a pretty steady pass blocker over the course of his career, but he is going to be 33 at the start of next season. And a lot of people are wondering, are the Ravens just trying to get younger on the offensive line? Were they not pleased with how things worked out? I think also that tackle rotation, I 100% agree with you. I personally, crazy things happen, but I don't think you can win a Super Bowl that way. You got to have guys who can go out there and have that consistent play for a full 60 minutes. So were you surprised that Baltimore traded Morgan Moses? They got a 4th round pick. Well, it was a swap. They move up 22 spots. But in that 4th round, they also get a 6th round pick. What were your initial reactions to the deal?
Yeah, the fact that they swapped picks, and you heard at the end of the year where they were asking about they meaning our fellow beat writers, our fellow Baltimore in the know Ravens reporters, basically they were like, hey, John, what's going on? Morgan Moses, the whole 9 yards. What are we seeing? And he said, hey, look, I'm not going to get into specifics, but he is either A, going to rehab, or he might choose another route, which AKA is surgery. And so in my mind, I was like, ooh, let me just keep that and file that away. So it doesn't surprise me that they're like, yeah, well, we can get, a guy, or there might be a young cat on the roster. Faalele, who knows? We don't know. We don't know if Voorhees is going to be turning out to be. We got a lot of young players on this roster, offensive line-wise, plus the way the draft is shaping up, it's supposed to be a heavy offensive line draft. So, yeah, again, you look at price point, you look at health, and you also look at the landscape of having a franchise quarterback and thing called salary cap. Salary cap went up, but at the same time, you're recognizing, hey, wait a minute. There are other quarterbacks that are going to be saying, hey, we're playing well. We want to restructure our deal. Let Lamar Jackson win another MVP. Let Lamar Jackson go ahead and hoist up that Lombardi and watch him come back to the table. You better have some I'm not saying cheap as in quality, but let's just say cheap as in salary cap, frugality, EDC, better have his ducks in a row.
That's what it is with quarterbacks on these big contracts, right? Well, for example, we see the Texans right now, going out there and signing big money contracts, guys like Danielle Hunter and getting those guys. CJ Stroud's on a rookie contract. You can do that when you have a quarterback on a rookie contract. For the Ravens, it's a bit of a different reality now with Lamar and his cap hit being what it is and that contract being what it is, where the Ravens now sit at 9 picks in this draft. It's a very deep draft class in multiple positions. You talk about that tackle class 100%. I agree with you there. There could be 7 or 8 tackles taken off the board just in the first round alone. That's how good it is. Eric DeCosta, I think, understands that he has to, 1, hit on his draft picks, and 2, hit on those veteran free agent signings, those smaller ones like we saw him do last year with Jadeveon Clowney and Kyle Van Noy and Ronald Darby, etc. But as Eric DeCosta has very blatantly said, he likes to have as many swings as possible because that gives you a better shot of hitting. So he has 9 swings this time around. We'll see if that's the final amount he has, but I think it was a solid move for the Ravens, but now they have to fill that void. As I mentioned, right now Baltimore has 3 voids on their starting offensive line compared to last season. John Simpson gone to New York alongside Morgan Moses, both those guys teaming up again in that Jets green. Then you have Kevin Zeitler, who's still the free agent. So your left tackle is Ronnie Stanley. You have a question mark at left guard. Your center is Tyler Linderbaum. And then you have a question mark on the entire right side, both right guard and right tackle. Are you trusting guys like an Andrew Voorhees or Ben Cleveland to take over one or both of those spots? Are you trusting a Daniel Faalele? Or would you like to see the Ravens bring in a veteran or 2 to make sure they have some veteran depth behind the young guys, or even who could take over that spot if needed?
Honestly, part of the rotation, and we saw it last year, was a Ben Cleveland playing. Okay, that's valuable playing time. That's valuable minutes. That's experience you're just not going to get otherwise. So I don't look at them as young guys that are so inexperienced that, you feel like it's impossible for them. I think it's more along the lines of they're going to feel good about themselves because they have playing experience. They're going to be able to work on their technique and recognize that, man, when I faced against a team that had some really good offensive or defensive linemen, I like the way my technique felt on XYZ stunt. But I also know I need to do better on XYZ stunt or technique that went against me. So those are things that you don't get via practice, not in today's NFL, because it's not as a physical NFL from a practice standpoint. So I like the fact that they already know the nomenclature. They already have a familiarity with one another. People are always, and this is part of the reason, again, I love me some off season. I love the excitement. Yeah, the slate gets wiped clean, but more than anything, hope springs eternal for 32 teams. I think that's the beauty and the magic of the NFL. I think it's awesome. I think for the Ravens, though, it's not necessarily always about what's out there. It's about what's in. And I think what's in gives you the confidence to trade a Morgan Moses. I think what's in shows that, yeah, I do trust my coaching staff. And I think if Joe D can develop guys, then let's go ahead and let's roll the dice because, again, you got a franchise quarterback. You you got to worry about the salary cap. I think this is EDC's offseason. Of course, John Harbaugh is probably like, hey, bro, give me the best offensive lineman you can give me. Hey, man, if we can trade for somebody, get it. But EDC's like, whoa, 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 whoa. You develop them and you put them into your scheme. Let me worry about who we got to go get or not get after, say, a rookie minicamp. That's where we see young guys either make it or break it. I think that's kind of like my vision, as well as I believe EDC's.
Yeah, I think that you will have all those guys get a shot. Cleveland, Voorhees, Falele, even Salah in there as well. They have young pieces, so all of them can make an impact. And I'd expect at least one of them, if not two of them, to start. I think that, again, this tackle class is so deep. If there's a stud available at 30 and you know that you need your long-term answer there at right tackle, and, honestly, left tackle too, right? Ronnie Stanley's not necessarily a long-term piece anymore. You probably take that guy and then you just either plug and play him at right tackle, or you could maybe kick him inside the guard if you need. So I expect the Ravens to, at least in the tackle class, add a guy early, maybe a guard as well. But I expect all the guys on the Ravens roster to compete. They're familiar with the system. It's year 2 of Todd Monken's offense now. They've been with Joe D for a while now as well. So it's about continuity, but also about bringing in new talent. I think Eric DeCosta has to balance that out, and he's done a good job of balancing that out ever since taking over here for Isaac Newsom. Coming up in the second part of the show, though, Eric DeCosta making a splash in the running back market, bringing in Derrick Henry. We're going to be talking about Henry's fit with the Ravens and their offense coming up next on this episode of Locked On Ravens. Stay tuned. We got a lot to dive into. First, this show is brought to you by Game Time. There have been plenty of frustrating ticket buying experiences in my life. Sometimes I wasn't really sure if the seats were good. Other times I couldn't find last-minute tickets. And sometimes there are no good deals. But you shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event, because Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. With kind of last-minute deals, all them prices, use from receipt, and their best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. The Game Time app has a lot going on over there, especially in the Baltimore area. Orioles opening day creeping up on us, just a couple weeks away now. Plus, there are plenty of concerts in the area as well. And the Game Time app also has views from all the seats in the venue. Plus, Game Time is the only ticket app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. All you have to do is see the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. Then you can buy tickets in seconds with 2 taps. They're obsessed with finding ways to help you save money on your tickets, too. With zone deals, you the section, and Game Time picks seats for big-time savings. Get the guys are going to buy in tickets with Game Time. Down the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. Create an account, redeem code LOCKEDON, spelled LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. We're back our second segment, Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher still here with Qadry Ismail and Q. I think a lot of people were getting a little antsy with how the running back market played out over the first day of free agency. Saquon Barkley goes to the Eagles. Josh Jacobs goes to the Packers. Everybody's moving. Gus Edwards leaves Baltimore, as we'll talk about, to go to the Chargers. And the only guy who seemed to be the big needle mover left was Derrick Henry. Now, we talked about Derrick Henry in our guessing game across multiple shows, Q. Now we can talk about it as reality. It's a 2-year, $16 million contract worth up to $29 million guaranteed. He got the same amount of money as a DeAndre Swift, as a Tony Pollard. I think that's a bargain bin deal for the Ravens. It's still solid money for Henry as well. I think it's a solid deal for both sides, considering age and, quote unquote wear and tear. But people look at the number 30 with running backs and they say, oh, well, he's washed. But Q, I think Derrick Henry is quite the opposite of washed. He is still one of the best running backs in this league. And to me, I don't think it's much of a debate.
So here's the thing. You look at the running back market, you knew it wasn't going to be, huge money. It's going to be some solid, strong, like cap-friendly NFL across the board type money. What surprised me in a good way, but it might be, is this a shift now? Like, this is the second year in a row that the Ravens have gone away from their traditional, hey, we let the market settle in. No big deal. We don't need to worry. Man, I'm running back started going. And I think Derrick Henry and the Ravens have been talking like for a while. You don't get deals done this quickly just because it's like, oh, everybody's gone. Hey, Derrick, do you want to play? I think it's a scenario where all those running backs, all those teams, tampering, not tampering, they were talking. Let's be real. So they were in there getting some conversations started and things happening, and it got done. Now, that being said, as far as what he has left to take, I think he does. I think he does have a lot left to take. I think he's gone to a team in the Ravens where they take care of their veterans. They know how to set the tone and not overwork a guy. And I think if you look at it from that perspective, then yeah, I think come game day, as long as he's not taking those unnecessary shots, and his offensive linemen, which we just said are young, but I think they're going to be good. I think they're going to be fresh. I think they're going to do what they need to do as far as protecting Lamar, as far as opening up holes for Derrick. Then you add in, when he gets back, when he gets healthy, a Keaton Mitchell, then you add in a Justice Hill and the way in which he kind of ended off his year on a high note. I think we got ourselves some nice looking running backs in that running back room, starting with King Henry.
Yeah, 100%. And I think when you talk about Derrick Henry, he is, we've talked about for a while, Q, well, who's the number one on the Ravens? Is it Gus Edwards? Is it J.K. Dobbins? They've had kind of a running back by committee approach. With Derrick Henry, he is your unquestioned number one running back. No one's coming close to him. It's number one, Derrick Henry. Number two, the next guy. But in terms of what Tennessee did, now I want to give Derrick Henry a shout out for a second here because he was worked into the ground in Tennessee. Over 2,000 carries in 8 seasons, so averaging over 250 carries in every single season that he's played, including over the past 4 healthy seasons, the lowest total he's had is 280. I believe the highest total that a running back has had in the Lamar era is 191 or something along those lines. So how are you fully maximizing him, Q? Because at this point, you want to give him enough carries because, look, he is Derrick Henry and he needs the ball in his hands. But again, there's a balance that John Harbaugh and the coaching staff have to kind of establish with him where you want to keep him as fresh as possible for late in the season. So you don't necessarily want to overwork him early.
So the main thing is the fact that he has experience. 2,000 carries, that's a hell of a lot of experience. You know how to run the football. You know what it's going to look like as far as your timing and all the things, getting up to seeing the different defenses. He's a pro's pro when it comes to taking care of his body. His off-season regimen, while yes, I do sports performance training and I might have some philosophical differences with the way his guy kind of approaches it in some regards, but I'm not going to sit here and be a haterade. I think he takes care of his body. He knows what he needs to do to make sure he is ready to go for the rigors of football. Now, when it comes to training camp, you're just not going to see Derrick get much load and heaviness of work. It's for what? He's already been there, done that. And I think that's a good thing. When it comes to the season, we already know what Lamar Jackson is capable of doing and how and which teams are going to have to defend against him. So, yeah, it is Todd Monken, the mad genius, to figure out, like, what am I wanting as far as different packages and different looks and how that all kind of correlates to this team being successful. I don't think it's just what we saw in Tennessee where you had, substandard quarterback play and you're relying upon Derrick Henry. I think you have guys on the outside that can make plays. You're going to have Mark Andrews coming back. You're going to have Isaiah Likely, who, goodness, now he's a veteran. He's no longer just a young, wide-eyed player. Dude has got some amazing chemistry minutes with Lamar Jackson. So you add all those pieces in. Why do I say tight ends? Is because you put 2 tight end groups in there. Plus you put like a pancake Pat Queen. But if you put him up in there, woo, buddy, now all of a sudden go ahead and try to stop a Derrick Henry and watch guys feast out of the backfield or guys feast in different movements and different formations. So not worried about it at all. That is something where defensive coordinator, he's going to be up sleepless nights because you're going to have that true thunder and lightning type of a proposition when it comes to the running game. And there's a lot of lightning there. Like you talk about the MVP lightning, and you talk about 2 quality guys, one when he comes back healthy and another coming off an up year in Justice Hill.
All those guys. I think that with Lamar too, it's almost, I've been calling it all week, Q, the yin-yang combination where Derrick Henry. You get that bruiser guy who has a lot more to his game. His game is very multidimensional. He's not just a bruiser, but then you have Lamar, who's the electric, explosive. He has that shiftiness to him. How do you think those two can play off of each other? Because usually with Lamar, he was the best player with the ball in his hands, right? And while I think that, I don't want to be like disrespectful to Gus or disrespectful to JK and saying they weren't good, because they were, but Derrick Henry just adds a different element where maybe with those guys who were shifting more towards Lamar and saying, well, we can live with Gus Edwards or JK beating us over Lamar. Now what you have, two elite talents, and you don't really know which way to go, where you're kind of caught flat-footed. And if that RPO game gets going, if that option game gets going, you don't know where that ball's going. We know Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry can win their one-on-ones against defenders in the open field in very different ways.
Yeah, I think part of the NFL is punch, counterpunch, direction, misdirection, personnel packages, hit you right in the mouth. Literally, it's a league in which if you can execute off of matchups, execute off of predictability, unpredictability. That's how you play winning football. That's what made Mike Macdonald so successful defensively. He had a Roquan Smith in the middle that elevated all the other ships around him. And because of that, now you're playing chess, not checkers, because you're looking at, well, the offense is doing this, but we are going to call our own play defensively, not to defend, but to attack. When you look at Todd Monken, that is his mindset also. You add in a Derrick Henry because of his resume. Now, yes, J.K. Dobbins, we get it. He was on that trajectory to, my goodness, be that guy. Like, hey, we wanted him to be that guy. Got hurt. Gus Edwards. If Gus was the guy, subconsciously, I promise you, it would have been more than one carry for 15 yards. He would have been like balling. So it wasn't. But we know now that you got a guy who has a resume, and we're going to see it. We're going to see it on full display.
It's going to be really exciting because I think there are just so many different ways you can use Derrick Henry in this offense. And the Ravens, they already had the best rushing offense in the league. And now you have Derrick Henry, who I think raises both your floor and your ceiling if you're the Ravens. Now, again, pieces have to fit. Offensive line has to get figured out, as we talked about in that first segment. But the potential is definitely endless. But that's more of the guessing game, Q. Coming up in the final part of the show, we'll talk a little more about the Ravens and who they have actually lost in free agency, and talking about some rivalry stuff with the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cincinnati Bengals, each getting a key Ravens defender. Stay tuned. A lot to get to on Locked On Ravens. First, this show is sponsored by Robinhood. Did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood is the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost in every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on a 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA with a 3% match. This offer is good through April 30th. Get started at Robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now for some legal info. Claim as of Q1 2024, validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risk, including loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. There's a match required to Robinhood Gold for 1 year for the date of this first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. The 3% match on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial LLC member SIPC is a registered broker-dealer. We're back. Our final segment of Locked On Ravens. Kevin Allstriker still here with Qadry Ismail. And Q, the Ravens, they got Derrick Henry. That was a big addition for them, but they have seemingly lost players, multiple players on every single day so far of free agency. Now, let's just start off with the big two here. Patrick Queen and Geno Stone. Both those guys go to division rivals. Geno Stone going to the Bengals on a 2-year, $15 million deal, and Patrick Queen going to the Pittsburgh Steelers. 3 years, $41 million for him. There's been a lot of controversy about the decisions on both of those guys to go to division rivals, more so Patrick Queen, knowing the rivalry that the Ravens Steelers have had over the course of their franchise history, the Ravens coming in 1996. how do you view this as a former player, and how would this have been received maybe when you were playing? If one of your teammates playing at the level that Patrick Queen or Geno Stone was, left for a division rival like Pittsburgh, one that is known to be hated not only by the fans, but obviously there's a certain level to it with the organization as well.
Yeah, as much as a fan base, I don't like it, or other fans might not like it. I mean, it's happened a gazillion times over back in the day, mid back in the day, and current day. I know I literally look back when I was with Minnesota Vikings. My second year in the league, we're playing the Detroit Lions, and they were our defensive line coach who was beloved by our guys, John Tierlink. He was the guy when it came to just being a strong coach and just knew his stuff. He was over with the Lions. Well, he brought over Henry Thomas. Henry Thomas was our Justin Matabike. So it was like, oh my gosh. We won that game, by the way, because I had a nice, just beautiful touchdown catch to beat the Detroit Lions when they had Barry Sanders, just to let you know that. Yeah, I digress. But then when you fast forward to some modern day stuff, my God, man, I got released by the Ravens, and I was like, all right, fine, I'm going. I went to Indianapolis, and while they weren't necessarily division rivals per se, but we did wind up facing one another, and I did wind up beating Gary Baxter on a critical play. He passed interfered on me that some Raven players and fans like, oh my God, Q, you always. Yeah, that's right. But you got rid of me and you lost. So yeah, there's that. But then you also look at, teams that have had franchise quarterbacks like a Steve McNair for the Titans. Samari Rolle, unbelievable all-pro, or maybe all-pro, but definitely Pro Bowl quarterback. You look at what Derek Mason meant to Tennessee. Heck, he's still there now doing a lot of media work. And they all came to Baltimore. King Henry coming to Baltimore. Hated rivals, switch teams. Teams don't care. We get caught up in it, but the billionaires that are the team owners, all they care about is that salary cap. And as long as that team is good, the coaches don't care because they're not going to get fired. Or if they don't do well, then they'll probably get fired, but we digress. So the point is that, yes, it is weird to see Patrick Queen go to a division rival. I think more weirdness for me, and I'll give you the floor after this, is that, Patrick, he was all like up in arms about how somehow, some way, Coach Tomlin didn't like him and said some things. And I wonder how that smoothed over when he was like, yeah, we're about to give you some money that is going to set up your family for the rest of your life and then another generation if you, in fact, invest wisely. Yeah, Coach, I love you. Let's do this.
Sometimes it's as simple as that. I know. So what Q was referring to there is it was a game. I think it was Queen's rookie season, if I'm remembering the story right. But essentially, Queen ended up on the Steelers sideline somehow, and Tomlin was like, "You're not a Raven. You're not a Raven." Like da da da. And so Queen essentially told that story and said, "Well, every time I play there now, it's personal." And now he's over there in Pittsburgh. I think Tomlin did. I think it was either this year or last year, called him one of the better linebackers in the league. So maybe that was kind of planting the seeds to get Patrick Queen over there. And I mean, look, it worked if it did. But yeah, Raven to Steeler, and it's happened before, right? Steelers have come over to Baltimore. We saw Alejandro Villanueva do it. Now he wasn't to the level, clearly, that Patrick Queen was at. But again, it has happened. Arthur Millette did it last year, went from Pittsburgh to Baltimore. So we've also seen
my guy,
Ravens.
Rod Woodson.
That's right.
So he's in the Pittsburgh Steelers Ring of Honor, as well as a Hall of Famer. I don't think he went in as a Raven, but at the same time, yeah.
Yeah, it happens all the time. So, I mean, we literally saw it with Saquon Barkley going from the Giants to the Eagles, and that one got a lot of hate, including from Mr. Tiki Barber. If you saw that cue where he essentially said,
to me.
You're dead to us, you're dead to me, and now Lamar Jackson, it's Lamar's new favorite line. He's saying it to all his former teammates who left as a joke. Obviously, Lamar doesn't actually mean it. But which one of these losses to you, Q, stung the most? Was there one that you maybe weren't expecting? Was there one that you knew was coming, but it didn't make it any easier to see this guy leave? Which one, or you can pick multiple if you want to, which one of these moves definitely had you feel in a certain type of way when it happened?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't tripping necessarily on Devin Duvernay. I was more happy for him because, hey, he has had some success, clearly, really good success, special teams wise. But I always thought every time he got the ball, he or the ball thrown his way, he showed up. And so I think it was kind of weird how the Ravens utilized him. So I'm happy he goes to Trevor Lawrence. I think that Trevor is a guy who, if you're open, you're getting the ball, and I'm gonna sling it over to you, so he gets an opportunity. I think Geno Stone wanted to one. I'm like, no. But yeah, I think Amarulo, defensive coordinator for Cincinnati Bengals, former Syracuse guy, my guy. I think he's going to utilize him well. I think it gives him an opportunity to be able to show off his skill set. But I'm nervous now because I'm like, dang it, there's just nuances that he's going to know when he's looking at Lamar and company. That I'm like, that's kind of like something that really would, in the back of my mind, be a concern. I think for Patrick Queen, I like me some Patrick Queen. I think he played his butt off. I think he is more deserving of all the money, all the accolades last year. You saw that dude laser focused in. But I cannot deny how it was a struggle for him to get to this point. And it really helped that once we saw, a high tide raising all ships come aboard, that's when his game picked up. But the high tide is still here. And so I'm not necessarily nervous that it's Patrick Queen going to be gone and what's going to happen like the other guys. But hey, all right, cool. Let's see what you can do. You're going to have a chance to run the show for your own self, and more power to you. And I think that Steelers defense is an aggressive defense. I think, TJ Watt's going to really, really help you out a lot. So yeah, you're going to be able to make some plays, and as long as it's not 2 Sundays next year, I'll be fine with you doing all the playmaking you can make.
Yeah, a lot of these guys, in fact, all of them deserve the money that they got. And so obviously that's what free agency is, right? Patrick Queen, Geno Stone, those guys were coming off their rookie contracts looking for their first long-term financial secure NFL contract. And they decided, the agents do the work, and, they put that in, and all of a sudden you're with a division rival. But that's just how the business goes. It's a business both for the players and for the teams. But one that I was kind of the one that stung the most for me, not that, I'm a big PQ guy. I like Geno Stone a lot, but Ronald Darby was one I was expecting the Ravens to have back in the building. But he goes to Jacksonville. The deal's worth up to $10 million. So that's one where Darby played really well for them. And he was like the Geno Stone of the corner room, because Geno came in and played really well in the absence of Marcus Williams when he needed to. Ronald Darby came in and played really well in the absence of Marlon Humphrey when he needed to. So they lose both of their key depth pieces there. But what else are you expecting, Q? The last, I'll save the guessing game question here for last. We talked about all reality. I have to throw in one guessing game question for you. I just have to do it. We saw a rumor Jadeveon Clowney's taking a visit this week with the Panthers. That's a potential hometown reunion for him. Are you expecting the Ravens to be aggressive in terms of maybe making one other move? Are you expecting them to be preparing to lose some of their other guys? Are you expecting them to even just start re-signing some other guys? We just saw the Ravens re-sign Brent Urban to a 1-year deal. Malik Harrison comes back as well. What do you expect these next couple of days for Baltimore to be in terms of how much activity there is?
Honestly, it wouldn't be surprising if, because of Jadeveon Clowney taking that strategic visit, that it might be a leverage game for him. And that's what you need. You need leverage, and so be it. You don't want, the Ravens to be like, oh, gee, golly, we love you. You love us. Hey, why don't you just, come back, and we're going to give you this. And then this is really low. Well, yeah, let's see if it is a scenario where you can get a Jadeveon Clowney back. He loved it here. He was amazing, but he also showed he still can play and very productive. I would love to see that be a significant next move, as this now dust settling of the first round of free agency has come to an end.
Yeah, the new league year officially started Wednesday, 4 p.m. So we're into that now. And who knows, maybe by the time you're listening to this, Jadeveon Clowney signed a deal. I mean, that's just the fluidity of NFL free agencies. Anything can happen at any given time. Q, I appreciate you. Thanks so much, as always, for hopping on, talking Ravens football, and, of course, playing along with the guessing game. That one means a little extra considering your view on the offseason. Tell people where they can find you, what you're working on here. As, again, we're getting into the nitty-gritty of free agency, and before we know it, the draft's going to be here.
Yeah, man. I tell you what, it's missile training, missiletraining.com. Missiletraining.com is where you can find me as far as performance-based training, performance-based movement. Doesn't matter the age, 8 to 84, all of that, even if you want to go older or younger. Well, younger, you better be focused in because I'm not going to babysit. But that being said, when it comes to just wjz.com/WJZCBS, here in Baltimore, you're going to find me on all of our Purple shows, Purple Connection, Purple Pregame, Purple Postgame, and our off-season show as well. We just love to talk some shop, and obviously you're going to find me on here on, what is it? Locked on Ravens.
That is right. Q comes on every single week, provides that great Ravens analysis and insight. Always great to have you on, Q. Appreciate you. The links to Q's work will be in the description below, so be sure to check him out on his website. And obviously on social media, you can follow him on X at I am Qadry Ismail, or Twitter if you still call it that. I'm on there as well at ChaosStriker34, and Instagram as well. You can find both Qadry and I on there, as well as also Facebook if you're still a Facebook user. That's all I have for you here today, though. I'm Locked on Ravens. Thank you so much for tuning in. Come up tomorrow, we'll be rounding out the week on Locked on Ravens and talking more, or maybe there'll be a move and we'll live stream here today on Thursday. Stay tuned. Be sure to subscribe, follow along, video form, audio form. I'll see you right back here soon on Locked on Ravens.